Alrighty, so thanks again for coming. Welcome back. So this week, as I mentioned, I've been working through a lot of Japanese specimens. And anyone who has worked with us on Tennessee's collection will have seen a lot of specimens from that country. I think Tennessee, I looked, has at least 11,000 specimens from Japan so far. And I believe that is largely due to former UT professor and herbarium director, AJ Sharp, who had a number of graduate students from Japan, including another prolific collector in our collection, Zunosuke Iwatsuki. And there were a number of expeditions co-sponsored by the University of Tennessee and the Hattori Botanical Laboratory. And those connections obviously have led us to have a lot of really great specimens from the country of Japan and from Japanese collectors. So very early on, we had a presentation about these two collectors, but I've been wanting to feature some of the other names. So this week I'll start with one that you may have seen, A. Noguchi. So this particular specimen was collected in August of 1947 in the Oita prefecture of Kyushu. And if you're not familiar, Japan has 4 main islands, and Kyushu is this one down here at the bottom. It's also divided into 47 prefectures, and Oita is down here at the bottom as well. And I wasn't able to find a reference to this exact locality, but there is a Yabakei gorge in that prefecture, so presumably it has something to do with that region. The specimen, which you can see here, was identified as Floribundaria nipponica, which is now a synonym of Trachycladiella aurea. And I found this really pretty picture of it actually growing out in the wild, actually in Japan. So A. Noguchi was Akira Noguchi. He was a Japanese bryologist and professor. He was born in 1907 in Miyakanojo, Japan, which is in the Miyazaki prefecture. So that's also down in that island of Kyushu. He was educated locally and then spent a year as an elementary school teacher. But in 1926, he enrolled at the Hiroshima Higher Normal School, which at that time was a 3-year program often used to prepare students for university or for medical school. He was in the Department of Natural History, and it's said that he became absorbed by plants in his teens, especially mosses, and in particular moss taxonomy, so the system of classifying different species and taxa. And the oldest of his specimens in the Bryophyte portal date to 1926. So when he was 19, and they're from Hiroshima, so it makes sense. He was collecting when he was at school. So he graduated in 1929 and began to work as a middle school teacher in Sendai City, so further north. In 1931, he went back to school, attending the newly opened Hiroshima University of Arts and Sciences, which today is Hiroshima University. And Noguchi enrolled in the biology department. He graduated from that in 1934 and started teaching middle school in the Hiroshima prefecture. His first biological papers were also published that year. So it was clear that he was studying mosses in addition to his teaching duties. In 1938, he became a teacher at the Oita City Normal School, and he was promoted to a professor in 1943. In 1949, the school became part of Oita University, and he acted as a biology professor. And at some point in that time, he completed a doctoral degree. Doesn't say exactly when, but his dissertation on 2 different moss subfamilies was published in parts from 1947 to 51. He was also associated with the Hattori Botanical Laboratory, which was created in 1946, right after the end of World War II. For the first 3 years, he was an inspector at the laboratory. And from 1950 until his death, he was a member of its board of directors. And while there, he helped to encourage and train many up-and-coming Japanese bryologists. It said he was the one who trained Zunosuke Iwatsuki when he got out of higher normal school, when he first came to the botanical laboratory. In 1955, he moved to the Kumamoto University as a professor in the biology department. In 1960, he became their dean of the Faculty of Culture. And from 1962 to 69, he was also concurrently the dean of the Faculty of Sciences. And then in 1973, he retired at the age of 65, which at that time was the mandatory age of retirement but he was made professor emeritus. Let's see. Okay, and then the same year he became a chief scientist at the Hattori Botanical Laboratory. And then from 1974 to 77, he was the president of the Bryological Society of Japan, which had been established in 1972. So his scientific career lasted over 60 years, included a lot of work on moss taxonomy. His name is associated with almost 500 taxa in Tropicos, including our first specimen. So Floribundaria niponica, if you look, this NOG afterwards is Akira Noguchi. So he was the one who described that species. He published 227 scientific works, including 3 books. His illustrated Moss Flora of Japan was published in 5 parts, and you can actually still access that for free online on the website of the Hattori Botanical Laboratory. From 1946 to 1983, so almost 40 years, he was co-editor of the Musi Japanesii Exicati. So it's a set of Japanese mosses that were distributed to herbaria and collectors around the world. The sets ended up including 1,700 numbered specimens. And we have most, if not all of that set. I have a set of it here at Tennessee, including, I thought was nice, number 1 and number 1,700. So the first and last. And you can see both of those have his name associated with them. So from 1955 to 83, he co-edited the publication Miscellanea Bryologica et Lichenologica until it ended in 1983. And from 1976 onward, he was an editorial member of the Journal of the Hattori Botanical Laboratory. And he passed away in 1988 at the age of 81. So in 1978, he was awarded the 3rd class of the Rising Sun Medal from the Japanese government. And the one picture I found of him is actually from that ceremony. So if you look closely, you can see him wearing it in the picture. There are 2 genera, brown Noguchia and Noguchia, and a number of species that were named in his honor. Specimen-wise, there are a little over 1,300 in the Bryophyte portal. All of those are from Japan or Taiwan, which was called Formosa at the time. 55 of those are type specimens, so they were used to describe new species. And there are even more specimens that were determined by him. So we have at least 1,300 that he helped to identify. So I just found 1 lichen, 12 vascular specimens, and a little over 400 specimens in GBEF. So there's likely a lot more out there, presumably, probably in Japanese herbaria. So that is Akira Noguchi, and I'll end again with a quote. When youthful, as well as in later life, he has been a perfectionist with intense devotion to his bryological studies, in contrast to many researchers of his age. In personality, he was modest and gentle and had a charming sense of humor. He was always approachable and generous in sharing his immense knowledge and experience with others. Many people can testify that they owe their interest in mosses to Dr. Noguchi's help and encouragement. Indeed, he was a born teacher and researcher. So one of many notable Japanese collectors in our herbarium, and hopefully I can share more of their stories in the upcoming weeks. So thank you for listening.